Isaiah the prophet and begin reading there with the second verse. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. You have enlarged the nation and increased their joy. They rejoice before you as people rejoice at the harvest, as warriors rejoice when dividing the plunder. For as in the day of Midian's defeat, you have shattered the yoke that burdens them, the bar across their shoulders, the rod of their oppressor. Every warrior's beat used in battle, and every garment rolled in blood will be destined for burning, will be fuel for the fire. For to us a child is born. To us a son is given. And the government will be on his shoulders. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the greatness of the government and peace there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever. The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this. May God add a blessing to the reading of his holy word. Over the last few weeks, you no doubt have joined most Americans in watching a number of Christmas programs, movies, holiday specials. Most of them are light in nature. They make us feel warm and inviting. You probably all have your favorites of watching people make merry, of learning a lesson, of enjoying family and fellowship. They help us to remember some very important concepts. But sometimes, I think, when we watch holiday specials, we also are reminded that sometimes our present reality doesn't always seem to match with those things that we see on a screen. Sometimes those imagined Christmases of the holiday special where everything gets wrapped up in a 45-minute to an hour segment doesn't always match with our busyness, as sometimes there's conflict and strife that is not quickly resolved. And sometimes our experiences don't match this, and it causes us to, at sometimes, get kind of down at Christmas because our Christmas doesn't seem to match the high expectations that we have of having this perfect, idyllic Christmas. When we look at the passage that we have today, it helps us to remember that the world in which Jesus came into was not a perfect world. There was a lot of strife and problems. That even when the prophet Isaiah was talking centuries before Jesus came, it was still a time of great problems, that there was great darkness in the world. Even tonight, as we gather and sing some beautiful songs, uplifting your wonderful voices together, lighting candles and sharing memories, having some nice cookies after the service together, we're reminded that there are people who are experiencing less than ideal time, even as we gather now. That there are probably people who do not have a home in Harrisburg, in York, and other places around in our community. That there are many parents, even now, who are still fretting over the inability they had to get that one present that their child or their grandchild really wanted, and they feel a little bit like a failure. There are people right now who don't have anywhere to go at Christmas, who are just feeling lonely and isolated. There are people who are thinking of their lives and how it didn't really turn out exactly like they had wanted it to. You see, there are people, as we look out the windows, we see it's dark, and there are people who walk in the darkness quite often. The darkness is very real. It creeps into every single one of our lives. But the message that the prophet Isaiah wants to deliver to us, that in the midst of the darkness, not denying the existence of the darkness, but even while recognizing it, that God has showed up. that he has given a spark of light to illuminate our lives, even in the darkest of hours. A message of pure hope, given to us of a child born in a situation that can offer us true change. See, the world is dark at times, but God is a God of light who wishes to bring illumination into that darkness and who wishes to transform us from the inside out if we only allow him to do so. You see, sometimes the world is a big and scary place, that there are things that happen that are beyond any of our control, that there are things that happen to us that are less than ideal. That the world, and we go out into it, that people all around us, sometimes even including ourselves, make stupid decisions and selfish ones and wrong ones who impact other people in negative ways. We live in a world that often doesn't truly want to trust God. And sometimes when we get in those situations, it kind of feels like that darkness closes in on us, that sometimes it almost suffocates us. And then in those moments, we think how real this darkness is. It's in that situation that Isaiah pens these words in the darkest of night, talking of a time in the history of Israel when there was little hope. But it is often in the times when there is a lack of hope, when there seems to be everything is going wrong, that God chooses to shine his light and to illuminate things. I'd like to share a short story. It's kind of short, I think, by this man named Garth Boston. He wrote it about his own life in 1998. He later became a Christian and a pastor, but at this time in his life, he's not. But he writes about this experience he had with Christmas in 1998, and he writes this: I was 19. I celebrated the traditions of Christmas, but not the Christ of Christmas. I neither knew nor cared about whose birthday it was in Jesus. You see, I just finished high school. I was working at a hotel, and I was more interested in my girlfriend than about God. But I liked Christmas. I enjoyed its warmth. I liked spending time with family and friends. It was Christmas Eve, and the lights in my dark suburban street were only Christmas lights. I saw very few people going outside, but I wanted to venture out to visit my girlfriend. She lived quite a far distance away, and I didn't have a car, so I needed to catch the bus. It came about every half hour, and I didn't mind waiting. As I looked around, it seems some of my surroundings were like a greeting card. Tiny lace doilies of snow, raining down like a benediction, hardly a breeze to delay their subsequent fall on a white carpet of the ground. I was carrying my Christmas gift for my girlfriend, wrapped with a beautiful pink ribbon and bow, when finally the transit bus appeared. And as it approached, it slowly stopped. Its doors opened. I walked up the steps quickly and sat on the front seat. I looked to see there were no other passengers. As the bus pulled away, the driver turned. He smiled at me. He was a sturdy, middle-aged man, a gray beard, a solid paunch above his belt, a regulation transit uniform, slightly wrinkled, but very plain. Where are you going, son? Going to visit your family for Christmas? No, I'm going to visit my girlfriend. I'm going to give her this gift. Ah, I see. What's your name? Mine's Andy. Garth, I said. My name's Garth. Good, good. I got a daughter not much older than you. Yeah, she's living in Vancouver now. Yeah, my daughter lives way out there now, he said, as if repeating it only to himself. But she's sick. So, my wife and I are going to fly out there tomorrow and take her home. Oh, I said. I hope she feels better. Is she, Yeah, she's a beautiful girl, he interrupted. Yeah, you want to see a picture of her? Before I had answered, he had fished the photo out of his shirt pocket. It seemed as though he had done it probably several times that very evening. I leaned forward and I looked. It was a graduation photo. Yes, she overdosed on drugs, Andy suddenly said. I sat back in my seat, unsure what to say. And he looked at my face for a reaction. Yeah, her name's Lori. Again, I had nothing but uncomfortable silence. Drugs, he said. Why do these kids get involved in drugs? I mean, she's my baby. And now she's lying in the general hospital, half out of her mind. I don't know. I mean, she ran off with this guy and his face was lined and strained as he spoke. I was red with embarrassment. She's my daughter, my little Lori. Why is she doing this to herself? Why didn't she just come home? Why does she take in those drugs? It's gonna kill her. His eyes brimmed with tears. He dabbed at the side of his ears, almost forgetting that I was there. I need to get off at this stop, I said, apologetically. Oh yeah, he said and steered the bus to the side of the road. You have a good one, okay? You be good to your girlfriend. Yeah, I said, hesitating to get up and leave. Nice meeting you, I said quickly as I nodded and walked towards the bus. I walked down the street towards my girlfriend's house when I began to hear someone singing a Christmas carol. And in that moment, I didn't quite understand fully then, but it seemed that it was an answer for Andy, maybe even for me. Now, years later, I understand it was really the answer for the entire world. I heard that carol singing, God rest you, merry gentlemen, let nothing you dismay. Remember, Christ, our Savior, was born Christmas Day. Sometimes I still think about Andy and his family, and I pray for them. And I pray for me to help be a beacon of light into a world that is so dark for so many. I shared that story. I know it was somewhat long in nature, but I shared it because I think on times like this, sometimes we gloss over the realness of pain, and strife, and hurt that is in people's lives. But that is really the message of Christmas. That it is in the times when there is hurt, and pain, and strife that God said, I'm going to show up. And I'm going to give you a chance at restoration. That I'm going to change the way things are. That I'm going to shake them up. That I'm going to make all things new. You see, Isaiah doesn't want us to passively accept the realities that are around us, but instead actively allow God to transform us from the inside out to become the men, women, and children that He wants us to be. Because God is still God. And He will always be God. The God that shined in the darkness for Isaiah, the God that shined into the gospel, is still the God that illuminates us here in 2017, soon to be 2018. That in the time of darkness, that He can show up in our lives and the lives of the people whom are around us. He calls us to embrace His message of the coming of the light, to reveal that He is real, that we are to live as people who have seen and experienced that very real light that allowed God to change us so that the world can see His light in and through us. That we affirm that message. I'm certain that even as we gather tonight, that there are some here tonight who are thinking about past hurts, past pains, past instances where the darkness seems to be creeping into our hearts and our mind. That there are some who have experienced pain, hurt, loneliness. And in the midst of that, in our culture, people try to all kinds of things to satisfy themselves, to self-medicate themselves with drugs and alcohol or sexuality. Sometimes we pick up what we think are more minor things, placing too much value on our jobs or our power, our wealth, or overeating or overworking, or whatever it is that we think gives us some sort of satisfaction. But the reality is that none of those things will ultimately truly give us any satisfaction except for God. He's the only thing that can fill that void and vacuum that is inside of us. If you've never truly seen the light of God, He wants to illuminate that for you for Christmas. There is no greater gift that can be given to a person than to find that God loves you. I mean, He truly, really, really, really loves you. And He wants you to know Him. And He wants you to become the man or woman or child that He wants you to be. Because He loves you and He has a very specific plan for you. And so it doesn't matter why we're here tonight. It doesn't matter what our intentions were. It doesn't matter all these other things, what we'll do later tonight. But what ultimately will matter for all eternity is what we do with the opportunity that is given to us from Jesus. Of this baby whose birth we celebrate in the manger, and how we respond to His invitation to know Him and the power of His love that can transform us. And while we all are still not perfect, we are going to make some stupid choices and stupid decisions. God is still loving you in the midst of that. Sometimes we like to look at the world and we think, the world's going to get better. Just listen, the world will never be perfect, though, until every knee has bowed and confessed Jesus Christ is Lord. We know that even on a night as holy and wonderful as Christmas Eve, that there are someone who in the world who are going to be murdered tonight. Someone's home will burn down. Someone will have everything they've owned taken and stolen from them. There's genocide and terrorism and just so much hate. But even in the midst of those things that we like to think, I'll get away from that at Christmas. That God looks through those things and He says, I want to eradicate those things. I want to remove the importance of those things so that the thing that you most know is my love, my peace, my joy, my acceptance, so that in coming to know me, you're filled with those things. So that you can become the people that I want you to be. That we allow Him in because He loves us. I want to look back again at verse 5, where it says, every warrior's boot used in battle, every garment rolled in blood, destined for burning, fuel for the fire. I think that's a weird thing. We often take that out as people read. They kind of gloss over verse 5 before they get into verse 6 because they're like, I don't want to think about violence and bloodshed. That's the world sometimes. That's the way things are. But it is in the midst of that. It is because of that. It's because of the evil. It's not, God isn't denying those things. It's because of that we have verse 6 where it says, for to us a child is born, to us a son is given. That because we live in a world that has violence and hate and sin, that God chooses to come to offer to us a different way than the ways of the world. Then to remember to celebrate Him. That this is a present reality. That He wants you to know Him. To know the power of His love, His mercy, His grace, His forgiveness. And He wants you to run into His loving arms. Sometimes we think, I can hide from God. It's the silliest thing there is. We can't hide from God. He knows everything you've ever done. He knows everything you ever thought about doing. And even because of that, or in spite of that, he opens his arms to us to embrace us and to draw us closer to him, offering to forgive us of even the worst thing that we have ever done. Because he loves us and he wants us to be close to him. That this Christmas, no matter what you go home to tonight and you have under your beautiful tree and you will open tomorrow, there's hopefully some very wonderful things, but nothing compares with the gift that God offers to give to us by the acceptance of his Son, that he would be willing to come and change and impact our lives. There's been a lot of talk this Christmas, as there has for a last number of Christmases, about keeping Christ in Christmas. And it's important to give us the message of what Christmas is about, which is about to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. And when people don't always celebrate or they don't remember Jesus, sometimes it pains my heart, it hurts it a little bit. But as I was discussing it with my wife, I felt like God was laying upon my heart and mind to remind me of saying, hey, stop worrying so much about what the world is doing about my birth. Stop worrying about what the people say about me who don't even know me. You worry about you. You keep Christ alive in the way that you live and conduct yourself so that the people who don't know me see me, hear me, feel my presence in their lives so that they know that we don't care so much if people say Merry Christmas as an expression because I want it that way, because it was the way it was when I was growing up, but because we know that Christ is real. And he can change your life. And the most important thing is to live that. Using words when we have to, but to live it. So that the other people around us can see the illumination of Christ even in the hurt and the pain and the suffering of their darkest hour. And so I ask that those of us who know Christ, above all things, seek to remember to bring illumination not only into our lives, but allow that illumination to go through us so that those who are around us can see Christ through us. Let us pray. God, we ask that you continue to open our hearts that we may feel you. Open our minds that we may know you. Open our eyes that we may see you. Open our ears that we may hear you. That above all else, that we ask that we would seek you because you continue to seek us. That when our world is dark, may our attentions turn to the true light of the world. May you help to fill our hearts to the point in which they feel like they will just burst if we do not continue to share the hope that we have in you. In Jesus' most holy name we pray. Amen. At this time,